Greetings, boils and ghouls. Step into my crypt for a tale of a tall, lanky lad who almost ended up in a pine box before he ever found the gravy train. Our story begins in Long Beach, where young Calvin spent his days dodging the reaper and searching for a beat. He was a dead beat in the making, or so the neighbors whispered. In a world of concrete and shadows, Calvin had a flow smoother than a fresh coat of formaldehyde. Now, Calvin wasn't alone in his misadventures. He ran with a crew that was looking for trouble in all the wrong haunts. His best pal, Malik, was always ready for a scare IOUS time. They spent their nights on the corner, spinning yarns and avoiding the flashing blue lights that prowled the streets like hungry wolves. It was a coin toss whether they'd end up in the studio or the slammer. Talk about a dead-end street. Fate, that fickle hag, decided to play a little game. While Malik and the others were getting tangled up in skeletons in the closet, Calvin spent his lonely hours scratching lyrics into a tattered notebook. He was dying to be heard. He knew that one wrong step would lead to a life sentence of obscurity, or, worse, a permanent residence in a 6-foot-deep studio apartment. Luck is a scream, isn't it? One night, a plan went sour ghoul. A local lawman, Officer Miller, was hot on their heels. Malik took a left into the arms of the law, but Calvin? He took a right and tripped over his own oversized sneakers, landing face first behind a dumpster just as the sirens wailed past. A lucky stumble that kept him from a jailhouse rock. With Malik behind bars, Calvin decided it was time for a change of heart attack. He recorded a demo tape that was so cold it would give a zombie the chills. He handed it to a man they called Doc, a producer with ears for talent and a nose for decomposition. Doc listened to the tape and his jaw dropped, literally. He knew Calvin was a natural-born killer on the mic. Doc brought Calvin into the inner sanctum, the recording studio. It was a place filled with smoke and soulless machines that brought the music to life. They worked through the night, creating a sound that was drop-dead gorgeous. Calvin's voice was like velvet over a tombstone, smooth and chilling. Fate was finally smiling, though she still had a few tricks up her sleeve. But just as the stars were aligning, the past came shrouding back. A misunderstanding in the streets led Calvin to a courtroom, facing the stern gaze of Judge Gabin. It was a grave situation. One word from the judge and Calvin's career would be buried before it even started. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke a vampire. Fate intervened once more. The evidence was dead on arrival, and Judge Gabin had no choice but to let Calvin go. He walked out of that courtroom a free man, greeted by a swarm of fans who were dying to get a piece of him. One young fan pushed through the crowd, holding a copy of his first record. Calvin realized his life had changed over-nightmare. Soon, the whole world knew the name of the lanky kid from Long Beach. He traveled the globe, performing on stages that were lit with more than just stage lights. He became a king of the underworld of hip-hop, a legend whose name would be whispered in crypts for generations. He had dodged the darkness and found the light, all thanks to a little bit of ghoul luck. So there you have it, my frightful friends. Calvin proved that even if you're born in the gutter, you can still reach for the scars. Luck and fate are the two ghouls that walk beside us all, deciding whether we find fame or the firmament. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a date with a coffin. I'm dying for a nap. Pleasant screams.